The Love Life and Lose Weight podcast will teach you the art and science of changing your habits around food. If you know what to do, but can't figure out why you're just not doing it, this is the right podcast for you. I'm your host, Advanced Certified Weight and Life Coach, Heather Beardsley. I've helped hundreds of women just like you figure out how to think and eat like a normal eater, lose weight, and love life on the journey to goal weight and beyond. Hi, welcome to episode 81. We have reached the end of the spring season and we are heading into summer. It's hard to believe. All right. So you all know by now, when the seasons change, it's time to look back, look at your data, look at your spring plan that we made back in March, and, look back and see what you're able to accomplish. So we're going to do that today. You're going to need a pen and a piece of paper or your digital planner. If you have the follow through planner, the seasonal plan and review for March will be in there in your spring planner. The plan and review for summer looking ahead is going to be in the new academic year planner. Hopefully you got that with the bundle when you purchased. If not, it's available and you can grab it for yourself. And there'll be more information about that at the end of the podcast. But I'll give you the questions and you can pause the podcast, answer, and do all that if you want to. Or you can just come back to this podcast when you have the planner and I can kind of walk you through the questions and give you some guidelines about filling this out. This seasonal plan and review, I've heard so many times my clients say, I always used to blow this one off because it just seemed like it wasn't necessary to do it. But doing the high level review of the 12 weeks previous, the results you were able to get, and then looking ahead to the new season really helps you be a dynamic and responsive planner for yourself based on how life changes with the seasons for you. And I know for so many of you, summer is like, the season that probably looks very different than the other 3 seasons, because especially if you have kids, right? Or maybe you just do a lot of your traveling in the summertime, or there's more social family things going on. You're in the pool more, maybe you're going to the beach or being on the boat, whatever you do. We need to be intentional about meeting those circumstances in the season ahead. And we're going to do that today. I also have 2 listener questions I'm going to address, which will be fun. And what else are we going to do? Oh, I'm going to do a quick recap of the podcast that I have released for the spring season. I think sometimes with listening to podcasts, the podcasts that I follow and listen to, they have such great information, but a lot of times I don't get a chance to really reflect on applying what I've learned. It's just kind of like I'll listen, it'll hopefully the good ones knock around in my head. And then if I don't do anything with them, I feel like I'm not really utilizing the podcast in my life or like applying the things that really apply to me that could be helpful for me. So I want you to use my review of what podcasts have been released this past spring as a way for you to maybe just spend some time on the one or two of the podcasts that really made an impact on you or apply most to you so that you can extract the most impact from what's in there. And then I have a special bonus for you coming into summer season that I'll talk about at the end. Okay. It's only good for a week. So let's start with the podcast recap. The follow through planner I introduced to you in episode 75. And that was I believe it was in late March. I went into detail about who the follow through planner is for. It's a digital planner. So if you are a pen and paper girl, it is not for you. But if you have made the transition to digital planning, you know how amazing it is. And I designed the planner to really help you have everything right at a stylus tap away. Um, I've gotten a lot of feedback from my clients who have now been using it for a few months that it's a game changer with habit change for your weight, especially for losing fat and or maintaining or gaining your muscle. It's designed for that. If that's what you need more of and you're a digital girl, you should listen to episode 75. But stay tuned. If you don't have the planner to the end of the podcast, I have an offer for you for the new academic year planner that will be starting July 1st. Okay. Episode 76, we got into the science behind fueling your workouts. I got a lot of feedback about this. Riffing off of what I've learned from Dr. Stacy Sims in her research about how women need to fuel their workouts. Under eating before exercise can stall your progress. And I went over why and how learning to fuel your body the right way can actually help you lose weight faster. I know it seems like, how could that be true? But I explained the science and what I've learned in episode 76. So if that's you, you're a workout girl and you've been fasting and working out for a long time and you're perimenopausal or postmenopausal, that episode could be really key for you. Episode 77, I talked about bone health, especially for Gen X women who are perimenopausal and or postmenopausal right now. I walked you through what the most current research is telling us about how to strengthen bones in this phase of life and the pivotal role of strength training and plyometrics in building bone and keeping your bone as you age. And I talk about why it's time to rethink that old traditional advice about avoiding high impact movement. All right, moving on. Episode 78, I shared my story about crash dieting, hormone imbalance, perimenopause, and finding relief through hormone replacement therapy. I also talked about how long term stress and under eating to try to lose weight, right? Pushing past hunger, with a dieting mindset can affect your ability to lose weight. And what I learned for me about healing, rebuilding trust with my body, and making empowered medical decisions about using hormone replacement therapy. So this is just experiential. And my hope with telling you my story is, number one, I hope none of you suffered the way that I did. Thankfully, there's so many more resources now than when I went through this phase of trying to find answers. But the goal is that hopefully you take any challenges you might be going through as you are working through perimenopause or menopause and working with your doctor to find answers that are much more readily available for you now, and really looking at what the science says about how hormone replacement therapy can be helpful, really helpful, and sometimes life-changing for many of us. Okay, episode 79, I talked about the power of keeping promises to yourself. Building self-trust through small, consistent actions is the foundation of lasting habit change. And this is why I created the follow through planner as the system to build self trust through small, consistent actions that follow through with your intentions. Your brain will cling to past failures, right? And how do we overcome that? Well, we shift our identity from someone who has not found success to somebody who follows through. And you can use any kind of planner to do that. by being intentional. So you can't follow through if you don't have an intention to follow through in the first place. And although planning doesn't directly help you lose weight, it does train you to practice becoming somebody who does what she says she's going to do. That is a really powerful self identity for you to cultivate for yourself that will absolutely help you reach your goals. So, being a promise keeper is really life changing. Episode 80, I talked about the power of becoming self reliant. And this one is different than keeping your promises to yourself, right? One is like, I'm going to do my workout today and making sure that you follow through and work out. Being self reliant is different. This is about the insidious ways we outsource our needs to other people. And as women or men, as humans, we can do this, especially when we're surrounded by people who love us and are helpful, right? But I see over and over again how when we outsource our needs to being met by other people, we chip away at our confidence, clarity about who we are, and a deeper connection with you as the agent of change of your life. So, this is another aspect that is extremely helpful in seeing you as the driver in the driver's seat of your life, where you take care of your side of the aisle in your life. We don't rely on easy ways or lean on people to just deliver us our needs. We take pride and also insist on doing for ourselves. So, I mean, it's like can be applied to anything from finding your own scissors, finding your own glasses without asking people to help you, to not relying on others to decide where to go for the restaurant you go to. It's the little things that you own as your own responsibility and that you take pleasure in creating for yourself and doing that physical and emotional labor for yourself to live a self actualized life. And which brings us to today. So, this is our review, and we'll move on to two listener questions. The first question is from Shelly. Shelly says she's on Wegovy. She's lost 20 pounds. Congratulations, Shelly. I used to coach with Shelly. So, hi. I just bought your planner, but I'm struggling to track hunger signals. I'd love an episode on timed eating for those of us on GLP-1s who don't have hunger cues consistently. Sure. Okay. So it's funny. Like, Shelly, I want you to remember back before you were on the medication and losing weight initially, we felt as though, and for many of my clients, that like there's just too much hunger and not enough satiety. And that's why it's really hard to eat the right amount to allow us to lose weight. And it's so interesting to see how that can totally flip 180, right? 180 degrees, where we kind of don't have enough hunger and we have almost too much satiety. So we're not sure, like, what is the right amount to eat? And I just want to give you that to let you know and remind you it's never been easy to know what is the right amount to eat, but yet you've lost weight both before GLP-1 and you're continuing to lose weight on GLP-1. And it's never going to feel like ding, 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 I ate the right amount. And that will be especially true if you're overthinking it. So try not to overthink it. But that being said, I want you to have some guideposts that you touch back on to help you make strategic decisions about when and how much to eat using some other guidelines. Okay. The first one is a timed eating window. This will have to do with, and you all can write this down, pre fueling your workouts That was in the episode that I just referenced about fueling your movement. It's very important that you not work out fasted if you are a perimenopausal or postmenopausal. And all the information on that is in that podcast. So you don't have to wait for hunger to have your pre-movement snack. Okay? So we just write that into the template of how much and when we eat. You're going to have a protein optimized meal, whether you're hungry or not, within 30 minutes after a hard workout. Okay? Whether or not you're hungry. So, of course, don't stuff yourself. Don't eat food that doesn't feel appealing to you. And you don't have to have all 30 grams post workout. But fueling afterward is really important for all the reasons I went over in that podcast. So, those are two instances in which it's great if you have hunger, but it's not necessary. And we learn how to eat anyway. And then there's this other phenomenon where if we haven't been eating prior to working out, fasted workouts for a long time, you won't have hunger. But once you do start pre-fueling with a snack before you work out and eating within a half an hour of a hard workout, you will start to see that your hunger will likely start to come back. And that can just be, like I said, because you've been working out fasted for so long or you're on GLP-1. Just have an open mind, be curious, don't push it, right? But do fuel yourself appropriately, because those 2 times to fuel yourself with a snack pre-workout and a protein optimized meal after you work out creates positive adaptations that set you up to burn fat overnight. And it is better for a perimenopausal or postmenopausal woman's physiology to be slightly front loaded with calories during the day when you are most active and need the fuel. What we want to do is create that slight front loading of calories at the front end of your day, and then end the day where you create that caloric deficit. Okay, so your dinner meal will be the one where you can really allow the decrease in hunger that you feel on the GLP-1 and the increased satiety let you eat less at night in that dinner time meal. So you can kind of lean on that and don't worry about it too much. Don't be eating more in the evening if you don't need to. When you really need to be fueling is post-workout and a snack pre-workout. And then for lunch, right, the middle one, you want to try to navigate lunch knowing, okay, what happened before lunch? How much time has gone by? And also, what's my energy level like? Considering what the morning was like for me, did I work out? Did I have a protein optimized meal? If it's within 2 hours of your protein optimized meal, you're not hungry. So you might want to move lunch later. Like, let's say you tend to have lunch at 1, but now that you're having a protein optimized meal after you work out, you're not likely hungry until 2. And if you really want to keep that evening meal and not eat it too late, then lunch looks maybe more like a large snack or a lighter meal. It just depends. You need to really experiment with this and see how you do. But those are just some guidelines and some goalposts that you can kind of plug into your template for when you eat and how much you eat. There are definitely some guideposts that you want to be hitting. And the other guidepost is trying to get a minimum of 90 grams of protein in, no matter how often you eat. It's very important that you are eating enough protein and strength training twice a week so that of the weight, the fat that you do lose, you're not losing too much muscle at the same time, because that will leave you weaker and less metabolically healthy, even if you do hit your goal weight. Okay. And again, there's other podcasts I did January, February on this, and you can go back and listen to those. Okay. I hope that helps, Shelly, at least give you a guideline for like what your guidelines are. Next question comes from Charisse. Thanks for writing in, Charisse. She says, can you talk more about tracking overeats and how to find your special overeat number? And then she has the second part of her question, which is, how do I tell the difference between 70% full, 75% full, etc.? Okay, so finding your special number of overeats. What Charisse means is, how many times can I overeat and still lose weight? That's how I teach. That's one of the core tenets of my weight loss program, is finding this number. So what you want to do, if you have no idea, that tells me that you have not been really tracking or planning. Okay. If you have no idea, just pick a number of overeats that you think you can have and just try tracking them for a week, right? Weigh in on a certain day. Decide how many overeats you will have. That's your frequency of overeating. And then 7 days later, get back on the scale. Note what your actual number of overeats were and see if that gave you a weight loss. If it maintained you, that number of overeats is likely close to the number that maintains your weight. If you gained weight, that number of overeats, the frequency of your overeating, is causing weight gain. And if you lost weight with that number, then you're pretty close to what your blueprint number is. And you want to test it again, and you want to test it a number of times so that you create certainty and confidence that you can overeat that number of times and still lose weight within 7 days. Okay, that's how you do it. If you do have data and like, go back and see the weeks that you lost weight, how often did you overeat within that week, and count them up. And then just borrow that data and bring it into what you do now and test that the first week. And, your follow through planner has a place for you to write all this down and track your blueprint number of overeats. It also has a place to write down how much you are eating. What is your volume of food? And I talk about this in terms of percentage full. So this is based on the concept of Hara-Hachi Bu, which is practiced by, those born before World War II in the island of Okinawa, Japan. They're one of the blue zones. They live very long, healthy lives, and they are excellent at maintaining really optimal weight their entire lives. And researchers have credited a practice called Hara-Hachi Bu, which means 8/10 full. So for the Okinawans, they have an intention to leave 20% of their stomach capacity not full of food. So they eat only to 80% full. And that perfectly maintains their weight. So my weight loss program riffs off of that and says, okay, if 80% full creates weight maintenance, we need to be just south of that at 75% full to create that slight caloric deficit. That's not too much. That creates stress, right? And over hunger. But it's just enough to gently nudge the body to burn fat so we can lose weight. So the question is, how do I know what 70% feels like versus 75% versus 80%, that Hara-Hachi Bu? Well, the first thing to do, Charisse, is to Notice when you are 50% full. So, to do this, I use the analogy of a water balloon. We've all filled a water balloon from empty with water. And when the water balloon is about half full, you probably have a visual in your mind about what that looks like. It looks kind of droopy, right? It's saggy and it's oval shaped. It's not full enough that it has more of a round shape. So at 50% full, you are no longer physically hungry, but you're also not ready to to stop eating because it would feel like you would get too hungry too quickly if you stopped there. And it definitely would not be emotionally satisfying to stop at 50% full. I think for most of us who were in diet mentality, like counting calories, really under eating, we were probably stopping at about 50% full, which is just enough to like, it's not quite enough where we feel like we are unsatisfied, like extremely underfueled and unsatisfied. Now, it's interesting. 20% more than that, 2/10 more is where we want to be. So the question is, okay, what's the difference between 50% full and 70% full? Well, I mean, the math answer is 2/10. So if you think about, 5/10 makes 50% full, we're going to add 2/10 more. So you just, use your visualization in your mind to think about like blocks of food in terms of bites. And I often ask my clients, how many bites do you think would get you from 50% full to 70% full? And, there is a wide range of answers that I get, anywhere from like 3 bites to maybe 7 or 10 bites. It depends. It depends on the individual, right? And you just have to test this. But 70% full definitely does not feel completely like easy to do. There is this element of you are eating less than you're used to eating so that you can trigger weight loss. So there's this psychological slight discomfort that your brain will be like, oh, that's not enough. Like, I want more. But if you really go into the space of your physical stomach that has that 2/10 more than half full, if you ask, if you personify your stomach and you ask your stomach, like, is it enough? The stomach, the bouncer of your stomach, that's what I often call it, will say, yeah, it's enough. Like, it's actually like the perfect amount. And your brain may not feel safe to stop there. That is very normal. And your work will be to create safety in stopping there. Many of my clients, in order to be able to stop there, they need to take 1 or 2 more bites, which would be about 75% full, at most 3 bites, something like that. And that's just like the doable thing that gets them closer to 70% is that they'll stop eating at 75%. And they might need to do that for a few weeks until they really realize, I could stop at a few bites earlier and lose weight a little bit faster. And you'll also see that if you stop at 70% full, you should have like a nice, consistent weight loss in all the meals that you eat that you're not overeating, right? Stopping at 75% full will give you slightly less results. And stopping at 80% full will just maintain your weight. It will likely maintain your weight. Some of my clients with more weight to lose can still lose weight eating to 80%. And I say, if that's you, go for it. There's no need to make this harder than it needs to be. Wherever you can doably stop eating and still lose weight is a great place to stop, whatever percentage you want to call that. Do it until it no longer gives you results. And then we'll look at like how to go to the next step, which is to eat a little bit less because, every 10 pounds or so, you really realize that the amount of food that you need to eat to maintain your weight has decreased because your mass is smaller. Okay. So, Charisse, try experimenting with that advice, and hopefully it will be helpful for you to start making some progress with knowing what your blueprint is. All right. So, it's time for spring reflection and summer planning. You should have your worksheet out from your planner or a paper and pen. So we're just going to go through what the seasonal plan and review from the spring. I want you to bring that one out that you did in March. You know, you had a review of the winter and, you know, what that brought you from basically, you know, the holidays through March. You had reviewed that and you made a plan for spring, which is basically March through mid late June, which is where we are now. And you had some goal outcomes that you wanted to create. And then you had goal actions that you could commit to doing that would create those outcomes. And at this point, I want you to fill in whether you were able to meet your goals or not. Were you able to be consistent with the actions that you took? Did you meet some of those outcomes? So, what you would do is you would look at the summer season plan and review, which is in the academic year long follow through planner. Some of you just got the spring planner and you'll need to get the academic planner to get this worksheet because the academic planner starts in the summer season. And we always review and plan at the beginning of each season. So in the first section, it says to stay focused on long-term goals and track progress, pause at each season's start to assess where you are. Note what's working and what isn't. This process reinforces your commitment, offers a fresh start, and helps you fall in love with the process rather than chasing all or nothing outcomes. So you may want to pause the podcast. Your first question is to review the past 12 weeks. Look at your calendar, look at your journal, look at your spring plan and review, and recall your goals, your actions, your data, your experiences during this time, and write your observations below, like a scientist observes her experiment. You can pause the podcast and come back when you're done. Okay, part 2 is to take that review of your data, your goals, your actions, your habits, and you're going to synthesize it, which means you're going to evaluate the outcomes, notice what worked, what didn't, and consider what you need to keep going. Do you need more time, different strategies? Do you need different knowledge? Do you need more practice? Do you need more knowledge? Review this or synthesize, come up with a plan like a scientist examining the results of her experiment. You can pause the podcast and come back when you're done. Okay, we're ready to reset and plan for summer. So, reset step 1 is to look forward as somebody who has learned from her experience in the spring. What do you want to achieve? This is identifying your 3 goal outcomes. I want you to consider upcoming vacations, practical matters, all happening over the next 12 weeks through the equinox in September, which would be around, I think it's around September 21st or so. So this is over the next 12 weeks. What goal outcome do you want to create? Make it measurable, focused, and achievable. Identify that. There's 3 boxes on the worksheet. You can pause the podcast and come back when you're done. Okay, step 2. Now that you've identified your 3 outcomes. So for most of you, Goal outcome will probably be to lose a certain number of pounds. Maybe goal outcome 2 is to maintain your muscle mass as you lose fat, or maybe even gain muscle mass. And then goal outcome number 3, maybe you're working on a habit that you want to establish. So maybe that's going from lifting weights 1 time a week to maybe consistently lifting 2 to 3 times a week. Something like that. All right. Now you're going to support these outcomes with the actions that will create them. So for many of you, like I said, that first outcome is probably to lose weight. So we know to lose fat, you need to create a caloric deficit. How do we create a caloric deficit? Well, we're not going to fucking count calories. What you're going to do is you're going to eat to 70 or 75% full when you're not overeating, and you're going to stick to your max number of overeats. So that should look pretty consistent for everybody. If your goal is to lose weight, you will need to be eating to 70, 75% full most of the time when you're not having your chosen overeats. And you'll need to be sticking with your max number of overeats each week. So those actions under goal number 1 directly support the outcome of weight loss, fat loss. Okay. Now, goal number 2, let's say it is to maintain your muscle mass. Well, hopefully you're getting on an in-body scale. You can find an in-body scale by going to inbody.com and looking up the locations. The in-body scale will give you a very, very accurate readout of your skeletal muscle mass, because it's not enough really to say I want to build muscle if you have no way to track it. And many home scales say that they track body composition, but they don't track skeletal muscle. They will track things like lean mass, but that number, it also includes like all your organs, your heart, things like that. So it's unclear if you're actually building muscle or maintaining it. You need to get on an in-body. I have a coupon code. If you want to get your own in-body home scale, you can go to hbeardsley.com/in-body, all one word. Oh, no. Yeah. hbeardsley.com/in-body. And you'll get free shipping and $30 off. Okay. So hopefully for goal number 2, if you're maintaining, you want to maintain or gain your skeletal muscle mass, you will be weighing at the beginning of the season on an in-body, and you will be weighing at the end of the season on an in-body, whether you go to the doctor's office or a gym or you get your own. Okay. So you can measure your outcomes. The other thing that you'll need to be doing is getting in a minimum of 90 grams of protein daily to support muscle hypertrophy, which means building muscle, if that's your goal. And 90 grams will help you maintain it as well. Okay. And then weightlifting for maintenance of your muscle at least 2 times a week, and to build muscle 3 times a week. We just know that that's what the science says. So those are your goal actions that correspond with maintaining skeletal muscle mass or building it. Okay. And then for your goal number 3 outcome, I'm going to leave it to you to figure out what actions directly support that outcome. So if you're training to, let's say, hike, I don't know, Mount Shasta, you're a hiker, right? You know that you're going to need to do training each week, base training, with some larger hikes in order to complete that larger hike up Mount Shasta at the end of the season. Whatever it is for you. I don't care if it's keeping your house cleaner or mowing the lawn yourself. Maybe you're working on, self-reliance or some of these other things I've talked about. It can be for fun too. It doesn't always have to be weight related, but for most of you, that's why we're here. So let's make sure goal outcome number 1 and 2 have to do with losing fat and at a minimum, maintaining your skeletal muscle mass, if not building it. Okay, so that is your summer season plan. The actions, you need to not forget about these. These goal actions that support the outcome need to be going on your weekly plans and your daily plans. So, for that strength training, let's say you're building muscle, you need to figure out what days of the week you're strength training and stick to it and work on your follow through and work on being a promise keeper and use your planner to follow through. Goal outcome number 1 being losing weight. You need to track your overeats and you need to track for every meal what percentage full did you stop at. The more you pay attention to this, the more intuitive the whole thing becomes. And that will directly impact your consistency with your weight loss goals this summer. And also, maybe you take a break from weight loss while you are traveling this summer. There is nothing wrong with doing that. And in fact, I actually recommend it. It shouldn't be weight loss at all costs every single week of the year. It's good to give your body a break and periodically just eat to 80%. So many of us have been trying to lose weight constantly for sometimes years. It's good to give your body a little more calories periodically, not so that you will gain a bunch of weight, but just to demonstrate to your body that there's food abundance. You sometimes take a break from dieting and you just enjoy maintenance once in a while. No different than weightlifters might take a break from lifting heavy weights and just go like take a whole week off or go purposefully much lighter to give their nervous system and their physiology a little bit of a break and some dynamism to come into what you do, because that really helps everything just kind of work a little bit better. Okay. So that's your plan and review. I'm excited for us to go through the summer season together. By the end of summer, season 3 of the podcast will be wrapped. It's very exciting. Let's see, what do I want to tell you? Okay. So if you're doing the reflection and you're thinking, wow, how am I going to make these goals like work for me? I don't want to wing it. You really should get the follow through planner, the year long one that I have available that starts July 1st and takes you all the way through June 30th of 2026. It includes your seasonal planning and reviews for the whole year. It also includes 4 group coaching sessions with me and other follow through planners who people who've bought the planner to help keep you accountable so that you can show up and tweak and test and adjust as we go through, the next year together. It includes weekly and monthly calendars. It includes a travel plan and a daily travel protocol that you can take with you on vacation this summer. It works with digital planning and a digital planning app like GoodNotes. This is not a paper planner, okay? It also includes my entire weight loss program inside. And since we're in the week leading up to being able to use it on the first day, I always do just a 1 week limited time discount. So you can get it starting today for 20% off. Normally, I give my email subscribers 15%, but it's 20% off. If you want to grab the extra discount, you can do that. If you're on my list, you already know what the discount code is. If you're not on my list, you need to get on the list. So to get that discount code for the 20% off, go to hbeardsley.com/F like Frank, T like Tom, P like Peter. To grab your discount code, you'll get email with that discount code immediately. And you can grab the planner and get set up for a successful summer season. This pre launch offer for 20% off is limited. It ends June 30th at 5 p.m. Okay. And it won't be offered again until probably Black Friday, when the planner is discounted anyway. Okay. So it's your last chance to get 20% off. So thank you so much for being here and spending the season with me. If you've enjoyed the spring episodes, take a moment to share the podcast with a friend, leave a review on the podcast. That really helps other people find the podcast. Or come say hi to me on Instagram. My handle is at Thrive in Midlife. Send me a DM or leave me a comment and let me know what you're working on this summer. I'm happy to and really enjoy cheering on each and every one of you as I see you kind of working on your goals and reaching them. It's awesome. So thank you very much. And I'll talk to you soon. Stay focused and so long. Hey, if this episode resonated for you, then let's connect. Visit hbeardsley.com/subscribe. That's HBEARDSLEY.com/subscribe and become a VIP subscriber. You'll learn how to work with me. You'll get 2 free gifts, access to exclusive VIP content, and get a discount on the digital follow-through planner.